Good afternoon, everyone. What a crazy year we've all had this year. I can't believe that 2020 is almost over. Even though the pandemic seems to be in the peak right now, there is light in the end of the tunnel. We have therapeutics, vaccines, which are close to getting emergency authorization across the world. And it's time for us to start thinking about what do we need to focus on post the pandemic. And over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to talk about some of the key trends that are converging together. Is truly going to create a talent war in 2021, and some of the strategies what companies can use to tap into the global talent potential and drive the global engineering through creating multiple hubs across some of the global talent hotspots. We'll start with some of the data points. So one of the key aspects which has changed in the last year is how the high-tech industries are expanding and leaving behind the manufacturing-led organizations in terms of R&D spend. Over the last year, the R&D spend of the high-tech-led industries is over 50% of the overall corporate R&D spend. You look at all the software industries, be it internet and software, semiconductor, consumer electronics, and telecom, all of them had a positive growth in R&D spend in spite of the pandemic, versus some of the manufacturing-led industries, aerospace, industrial, construction, and automotive, had a tough year, and most of them had a degrowth. In fact, industries like aerospace had a 30% degrowth, and frankly, it might take several quarters for these industries to come back. So many of the companies in the manufacturing industry are brought outside of the comfort zone, and they need to really start focusing on driving innovation and R&D very differently compared to what they had done over the last decade. And that's resulting in some of the very interesting newer strategies and newer initiatives from these organizations. If you look at the way organizations are pivoting, we look at three different distinct strategies. One are companies really going after a moonshot. A company like Airbus, which is deeply impacted by the pandemic, are looking at how do we get hydrogen fuel cell concept aircraft out and get them to manufacturing by 2035. You have automotive companies like BMW, which is focused on shared platforms, both EV as well as IC engines, are accelerating the innovation and moving forward some of the plans they had to build EV-focused platforms and driving those and getting them to market by 2025. The third strategy companies are following is to realign the product portfolio to focus on a set of a product which is very relevant to the current market needs. If you look at Rolls-Royce has already announced that they're not just going to focus on the larger engine, but they're really starting to build smaller engines for narrow-body aircrafts. So each of these companies is really taking very a distinct change in the strategic position because of the pandemic. And make this a reality, it's going to be extremely hard for all of the organizations because it requires change in the way they engineer product, the kind of talent they require to be able to build these innovations. There are a lot of different questions, right? Can these organizations make the relevant changes in the organizational structure? Can these organizations find a new set of partners who can conceptualize, reimagine, and build these products? Can these organizations retool the engineering culture to be able to drive the next set of innovation? The answer to all of these questions is all of the above. They got to do all of this, and they got to do all of this very efficiently and flawlessly to be able to come out successful as they look at the years post the pandemic. And it's also very clear, the clear trend which is coming out as digital engineering as part of the overall engineering and R&D spend is going to grow much faster than the traditional engineering across industry segments. And we looked at broadly across industries, right, analyzing hundreds of companies. We were able to identify 5 key themes where we're going to see digital engineering continue to drive growth. One is what we call as TeleX. in any industry, be it in healthcare, education, entertainment, how the service is delivered and how the customer is engaged is completely becoming remote. So that's a big trend, mega trend, and the trend accelerated during pandemic. We expect the trend to continue post-pandemic as well. Second is contactless commerce, be it essential retail, non-essential retail, medical supplies. All of this becoming online, and even a company like Pepsi are moving into a direct-to-consumer model so that they don't have to rely on the physical retail channels. Third is really intelligent workplace. How do you digitally empower both your frontline workers as well as your back office workers? And digital intelligent workplace includes digital collaboration, workforce automation, smart facilities, smart factories, and even digital workplace training. And the fourth aspect is really digital thread. We talked about some of the shift in strategies of companies, but how do you now conceptualize, build, manufacture, and support products by seamlessly integrating the digital twin into the way you build products? So that is going to be a major trend across manufacturing-led industries. And finally, about next generation governance. We've been talking about smart governance for a long time, but the pandemic has made cities realize that they need to understand, gain better insights about the citizens and the cities, and they need to be able to roll out new services much faster using digital technologies. So you would see a massive shift and focus by cities on making delivering and deploying digital technologies within the organizations. And all of this is going to be possible on top of a digital intelligent infrastructure, which is based on hybrid cloud, intelligent security and compliance, intelligent automation of processes, as well as building applications which are intelligent. So it's a massive shift in terms of how organizations are going to focus on digital engineering. And what this has done is it's really making organizations focus on some of the newer technology areas and then deprioritizing some of the areas where they won't be able to differentiate themselves in the future. For example, if you look at retail, the focus is on AR, VR based customer experience, omni-channel, digital loyalty programs, warehouse robotics and contactless deliveries. If you look at healthcare, it's focused on teleconsultation, predictive diagnostics, robot surgeries, smart hospitals. And the interesting thing is, for all of these newer digital-enabled products and services, the skills required is starting to converge. And you require cybersecurity for all of these areas. You require things like machine learning. You require design thinking-led customer experience design. You require big data analytics. Even things like VLSI, which used to be very specific to an industry like semiconductor, today every OE in every industry is starting to build their own chip. So semiconductor capability, VLSI capability is required in the automotive industry, telecom, consumer electronics, and aerospace and industrial, and so on. So even skills which are very, very focused on a specific vertical now is relevant across industries. So and all of these skills are converging, and that's the reason we believe there's going to be a massive talent war in 2021 for organizations to move forward with the digital roadmap. Just take an example of AI. If you look at AI, the Drop platform has analyzed and say the global demand for AI and big data talent is 1.2 million engineers, right? 1.2 million engineers required by the top 1,000 companies. And the current install base is only 650,000 spread across the large engineering and R&D spenders, startups, as well as technology service providers. So you would rather have 500,000 engineers has to be deployed, and organizations has to be creative in tapping into the talent and bringing this talent on board. And it's not just for AI, right? It's going to be the same for IoT and mobile solutions and security and other skills. The good thing, though, of the pandemic is organizations have understood how to work from a remote in a remote manner. the dominant paradigm before the pandemic is for you to drive high productivity and innovation, organization has to be co-located. So engineering teams and across Europe, the R&D centers wanted the partner teams as well as the own engineers co-located so that they're able to move forward the products. But the last 9 months has proven that you can be equally, if not more effective, when you're working in a remote scenario. And companies are starting to make calls. The high-tech companies are a lot more aggressive. You look at companies like Spotify, they're saying, you don't have to come back to office till 2021 in September. And we initially thought it's really going to be only the high-tech companies going to come up with these strategies. But even a manufacturing organization, be it a company like Bosch or PSA, are considering having a large chunk, 30% of the talent permanently working from home. This is a major shift in terms of how organizations think about innovation, how organizations think about collaboration. And this is, we think, is a very positive change in terms of how organizations drive engineering. Now, because of that, it's possible for organizations to look at all of the global talent locations and see where can I find the right talent, and more importantly, how do I structure the right talent into hubs so they can drive innovation from those locations. And to do this, the first key aspect you need to understand is where is this talent? And we have done a detailed analysis using the Draw platform to look at what is the talent available across different locations. And the way to read this in a slide is the bubble size shows the size of the talent. The color of the bubble shows either the cost of the talent. The green is where the cost of talent is lower, and the red is where the cost of talent is higher. If you look at North America, US, the talent bubble is large, 1.5 million installed engineers, but the cost is high. It's the red color. So that's how you read it. You can see that country like India, you have a large talent pool at a lower cost. If you look at countries in Eastern Europe, very high quality talent, but the cost is slightly higher. Going to Latin America like Brazil, you have a reasonable amount of talent pool at a lower cost. So each of this country brings in their own advantage, right? For example, if you want to look at scale, India and China graduates over 2 million engineers in a year. 2 million engineers in a year. So if you want to really scale, you have to have a presence in one of these locations. In China, most companies focus on China largely for building innovations for China market, not so much for the global market. And the current challenges between the US and China, as well as over reliance on China from a global supply chain perspective, is making companies a little bit reluctant in expanding their existing R&D footprint in China. So we expect in 2021, the expansion in China is going to be slower. However, China will play a significant role in innovation for the foreseeable future. The expansion is going to be slower. India is all largely about digital innovation and global innovation. Companies are setting up their R&D centers to drive innovation products for the global markets. And if you come into Latin America, it's a great nearshore location for US, same time zone. People are now used to work from home, but if it's a same time zone, it's much easier for them to collaborate. So Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Colombia, all of these countries are getting a lot of interest. And you come into Eastern Europe, be it Bulgaria, Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic, Bulgaria, a lot of these countries, because of proximity to Western Europe, time zone, as well as cultural similarities, Western European countries prefer to tap into the talent in Eastern Europe. So all of these locations are becoming hotbed, and each organization really have to look at what is that they're trying to achieve, and then select the right city within these countries. And we did a detailed analysis of the Eastern European countries. We looked at across like 4 dimensions. What is the maturity of the software engineering talent in that location? Second, we looked at cost, both in terms of operating cost as well as setup cost. Third, we looked at the overall talent pool in that location, technology talent pool. Then fourth, we looked at ease of doing business. In fact, the ease of doing business, most of the Eastern European countries are rated much higher compared to other Asian countries, except for Belarus, where there is a political challenges at this time. But other countries actually factored much higher compared to the Asian countries. And we have done a lot of detailed analysis on each of these countries. If you want to get into more interesting insights on these, do reach out to any of your account managers from Zinnov. Here is an example of Poland. Poland is one of the more mature locations within Europe. There are 600 plus global companies having centers across all the different 5 cities in Poland. So it's easier for a new company to go into any of this city where your peers have centers and quickly set up the initial set of engineers. And Poland, it's cheaper. If you look at the spider chart on the right side, you can see it's really cheaper than the US. Attrition rate is lower. And clearly, it's beneficial for Eastern European, for companies in Western Europe to set up a center in Poland. And you have looked at companies like Google. Google set up a center in Poland 10 years ago, and today the team there is making significant contribution to the Google Cloud platform. It's not just companies from Western Europe and US, but even companies from China are setting up their R&D centers in Poland. Recently, TCL, one of the largest consumer electronic company in China, set up their artificial intelligence innovation lab in Poland, and we expect a lot more of companies from China setting up centers in Eastern Europe as well. So it's very interesting how some of these locations are evolving over the last few years. And in fact, if you look at the top 1,000 companies, already most of these companies have some kind of presence in these locations, right? When we analyze the top 1,000 companies, they had about 10,000 technology and R&D centers across the globe, and many of these companies started largely for tapping into the lower cost potential of the location, and they started working on more a lower end of the technology value chain work in those areas. But what is happening today is that talent in these locations are becoming aware that they are a very hot commodity in the market, and they say, hey, I really want to contribute to the innovation capability of an organization. I want to drive accountability and ownership for the organization, and just because they are paid lesser, they don't want to be treated as second-class engineering organization, even within the company, and they don't want to tap into talent in these locations. They really have to look at what are the right strategy for us to tap into the talent in the specific locations. And there are 4, when a company sets up what we call as a hub, a center in these locations, there are 4 kinds of models. Our recommendation to companies to set up a hub is a portfolio hub, a transformation hub, not so much an outpost or satellite, right? I'll explain what that means. Outpost is really an engineering organization, which is much smaller, focused on a specific expertise area. And many times you'd have got this by acquisition, or they're working on localizing the product for a particular market. They're present in the market to localize the product. So really not strategic for the organization, not much capability within that center. Second is more satellite centers. Satellite centers could be reasonable size. However, they don't have a lot of products which they own. They probably have products which they have modules which they own. They don't have end-to-end ownership on the products, as well as they don't have strong leadership or ability to build capability and tap into the ecosystem capability in that location. And third is what we call as a portfolio hub, where the center wants end-to-end ownership of a set of product portfolio and also has the right processes, structure, technology to continue to develop and improve the center over a period of time. So here, end-to-end products are owned. The leaders here could have teams across the globe reporting back into them, and they're really, truly contributing and creating impact to the organization. And fourth is what we call as a transformation hub. And a transformation hub is a center which is also a portfolio hub, but on top of being a portfolio hub, they drive 1 or 2 transformation initiatives for the organization from the hub. For example, if an organization is running the ADAS program globally from that hub, or they're building the the EV powertrain from that particular hub, or they're driving the overall cloud transformation for their organization from that hub. So that is really what we call as a transformation hub. And what we have seen is the impact, the ability of the organization to attract high quality talent, the ability of the organization to drive high productivity, the ability of the organization to drive innovation, the ability of the organization to create a leadership pipeline for the organization significantly increases as you move through this curve to become a portfolio hub or a transformation hub. Unfortunately, the 10,000 plus centers I talked about, a lot of the companies, the global 1,000 companies, are operating at much lower maturity as an outpost or satellite from these locations. And truly, they have to drive a major change if you really want to attract the top talent and come on top of the upcoming talent war. They really have to move into a portfolio hub or a transformation hub. In fact, some of the companies are already doing that, right? If you look at Bosch has set up a portfolio hub in India, and then they're actually moving into the next level where they're also incubating completely new businesses, which is new to Bosch, completely from India, and making that a major initiative for the global company. And they're also expanding the overall portfolio by setting up satellite centers in other locations where they can tap into talent, be it in Coimbatore and Hyderabad, not just in India. The Bangalore hub also set up centers in Mexico and Vietnam. And similarly, Nokia has set up these hubs which can tap into the next generation talent which is coming in this specific location. So organizations are moving into the hub model. There are already weak signals that there are going to be more and more companies moving into this model. However, what we have seen is moving in and operating as a hub is incredibly hard for organizations, right? And we studied hundreds of companies to come up with what should be the operating model for a global hub. And we categorize this. This slide is a heavy slide, but I'll talk you through some of these key aspects of it. The first is, who is the stakeholder for the hub? If the stakeholder is really the company and you do whatever the company asks, then that's a very narrow view of looking at what the hub could do. So the hub could balance the priorities for the end customers, the organization, employees, and as well as the community in which the hub is being built. Second is, who are the sponsors for the hub? This hub sponsor should be at a CXO level. It should be at the middle management level, and also the hub should have sponsors even within the ecosystem of where the hub is operating. And third part is leadership, right? You need to have the right leadership, entrepreneurs, and global leadership operating at that particular hub. The hub also should have two models, what we call as a dual core of operation. One is more run an experiment core, which is looking at ideas internally and externally and rapidly iterating on the ideas. Most of these ideas could fail, but some of these ideas could build new business models or new products. And the scale part of the core operations takes some of these aspects and scales these ideas, and also acts as a way to bring more portfolio of work into the hub from global locations and scale these aspects. To be able to drive that, you need to have the right organization structure. The big questions are where does a matrix report into? Do the teams report into the global hub leader, or do they report to the headquarters? What level of reporting do you need to have? And where does the global hub report into? Does it report into the head of engineering? Does it report into the chief operating officer? So a lot of the decisions you got to make, as well as you got to look at the right governance metrics. Are you going to measure just the outputs, or you also measure some of the input metrics? And then you need to have a right talent foundation in terms of ability to attract, retain, engage, and develop top quality talent, and also drive talent in a way the talent is successful working from remote locations. And finally, you need the center to really tap into the ecosystem of startups and academia and service providers. So this is the operating model, and we can go deeper into each of the areas in this particular, and then we have done a lot of research on these areas. If you're interested, you can reach out to us. But the key takeaway for us is that you really have to watch out for the talent war, which is going to come in because of the convergence of skills and trends. And you need to tap into the talent which is available across the globe. And to be able to tap into this talent, you really need to set up global hubs the hubs which will help you attract top talent and drive your innovation agenda forward. And over the next few hours, we'll dive into a little bit more detail on each of these areas. Thank you. Over to you, Emily.
Thank you so much, Pari. That was very insightful. We are a little bit short in time, but we will take one question for you. Do you think the demand for low-code technologies will increase in 2021 for building digital products in a remote development scenario, Pari?
The question is, the demand for local talent will increase?
The demand for low-code technologies will increase in 2021 for building digital products in a remote development scenario.
Absolutely. So that's going to the saying. So it's going to be that kind of talent. It's going to the demand for that is going to be rapid, and you're going to see a massive increase in 2021.
Thank you. Stay tuned for a very interesting session on the importance of talent reskilling.